Good evening. My name is Thomas Martin and I will be presenting over the case study for EDL 853. Relevant data from the incident. So the incident that we will be discussing throughout this presentation was a football injury that occurred at Nottingham High School's football game involving their star quarterback, Miguel Hernandez, who sustained injuries resulting in waist-down paralysis and requiring him to use a wheelchair. Before he was released to return to school, Miguel's parents scheduled a meeting with Miss Gusman, the school counselor. During that meeting, Miguel's parents informed Miss Gusman about the wheelchair and that they didn't see a need for any other accommodations besides classroom access. As he was a successful student prior to the incident, they're not anticipating any concerns when he comes back to school except for the equal classroom access. So Miguel was allowed to return to school, and there was an award ceremony that occurred upon his return, and then when he went to his first period class, he was informed by the teacher that he needed to meet with Ms. Gusman to discuss a change in his schedule. So Miguel's schedule changed due to the location of his biology class, which was on the second floor, and there was no wheelchair access to this room. His new schedule included another science class, which would satisfy graduation requirements, but the reason he was in his biology class is because it was a college preparatory class, which was a requirement of the university that he was planning to attend after high school. So he would be receiving credit for that university if he continued in with this biology class. So when Mrs. Hernandez found out that Miguel's schedule had been changed, she called the principal and scheduled a meeting for the following day. The meeting was to discuss some of the parent concerns, which involved Miguel's denied access to biology course. The parents were not informed of this schedule change, and they demanded that he be reinstated in biology because this was a requirement of the university that he had originally planned to attend. Prior to the closing of the meeting with Mrs. Hernandez and the principal, Mr. Hernandez arrived with a lawyer who stated that his presence was to ensure that Miguel's rights were protected because they had been violated because he was being denied equal access to educational opportunities. Legal issues. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act states that no person with a disability can be excluded from participation in any program receiving federal assistance on the basis of the disability. So, everyone is guaranteed a right to a free and appropriate public education and must have access to the same educational opportunities as non-exceptional peers. The Americans with Disability Act also states that all classrooms must be wheelchair accessible and two-story school buildings must have an elevator or a wheelchair lift in order to provide access to all floors. Synthesized statement. Due to Miguel's physical impairment, he will need some additional accommodations to ensure that he has equal access to the same educational opportunities afforded to all students. So at this point, with him being denied access to that biology class, he's not receiving the same educational opportunities that are afforded to all students. Review of information. The football injury caused waist-down paralysis for Miguel. His schedule was changed without parent notification or consent. Replacement class for biology was not a college preparatory class, and the location of the biology class was the reason for the denial of the access because it was not wheelchair accessible. Prioritizing information. Establishing access to the biology class for Miguel is a priority in this situation, and it would satisfy all stakeholders, as the primary complaint from the parent was that they just wanted him to have access to all of the classrooms. Options to consider. So one option to consider is how do we provide access to biology class for Miguel given his current mobility concerns. 25% of the high school campus has not yet been renovated, and the building that the biology class is located in is part of that 25%. So one option to consider is to develop a 504 plan, which would allow for the delivery of accommodations to aid with accessing the same education as non-exceptional peers. Not providing access to the class would be out of compliance with ADA federal guidelines, would not be supportive or inclusive, and would be denying equal educational opportunities for all students. Determining access to biology will require team input. Several options exist but are limited. So options for providing access to the biology class would be teleconferencing access to the biology class. So what that would look like would be setting up like a webcam, an interactive telecommunication device so that Miguel can interact with his course from a distance. Another option would be relocating the biology class to one of the other buildings on the campus that are ADA accessible, or installing an elevator in the building to support his access to this class. Options and consequences continued. 504 plan. This would allow for various accommodations to be administered. We could also consult with a physical therapist who would not be able to provide services through a 504 plan, but he or she would be able to consult with us just to ensure that any additional accommodations or modifications to ensure that if they are needed, then they are implemented into this plan, just so that he has the same access to the same educational activities that all students have. Best option. Due to his current mobility status, he does meet criteria of an individual with a disability, which would qualify him for a 504 plan. Also going along with that option is installing an elevator in the building to meet ADA federal guidelines, because Miguel is not likely the only student that we will have that has limited mobility. We need to get all buildings on campus to be ADA compliant. Plan of action. So I will meet as a team with the parents, the administrator, the biology teacher, the nurse, the school psychologist, and any professionals that the parent chooses to invite, such as the civil rights, the lawyer that they had brought in for the initial meeting. And our purpose for a meeting would be to develop the 504 plan. I would also request consultation from a physical therapist to assist with the development of this plan, just so that she can kind of look around the campus and see if there are any other areas that we may need to be cognizant of that would require some accommodations in order to provide Miguel, with equal access. Also, part of this plan of action is installing an elevator for access to all floors of the building for students with wheelchairs or other mobility needs. Standard integration. Various points are highlighted throughout this presentation indicating the application of equal access to educational opportunities for all students as the basis for the decision in this case study. So ensuring that equal access was kind of the basis for going the route of the plan of action that I had chosen for my case study. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.